The sound of laughter drifted through the half-closed door like the scent of something forbidden, soft at first, then sharp enough to slice through the silence of the house. My name fell between their voices, muffled, intimate, wrong. I froze at the top of the stairs, one hand clutching the railing, the other trembling around the mug of coffee I hadn't yet sipped. "She's gone early again," Daniel's voice murmured, low and lazy. Then came another, higher, breathier, and far too familiar. "Lydia. My sister." For a second my brain refused to process it. Lydia. Not a friend. Not some stranger. My sister. The mug slipped from my grip and shattered on the wooden floor, coffee bleeding into the cracks like a spreading wound. The sound startled them. I heard movement, whispers, panic. Then the bedroom door clicked shut. I stood there, staring at the thin sliver of light beneath it, feeling my world tilt. "Evelyn." Daniel's voice came, hurried, too calm. "You're home." Home. The word hit like a cruel joke. I didn't answer. My legs moved on their own, carrying me down the stairs, each step heavy, deliberate. I could smell him, that mix of sandalwood and cologne he always wore. I could smell her perfume too, vanilla and something sweet, nauseating now. They didn't follow me. They didn't have to. The silence said enough. Outside, the morning air was sharp and cold. The world looked exactly the same. Sun cutting through the fog, birds pecking at the ground, but everything in me had changed. The ring on my finger suddenly felt foreign. Heavy. A lie pressed into gold. I drove without thinking, barely aware of the road until I pulled over by the lake, the place Daniel had proposed 2 years ago. I'd said yes under that same willow tree, laughing, crying, believing I was the luckiest woman alive. Now that memory burned like acid. The betrayal didn't feel cinematic. It wasn't loud. It was slow, suffocating, a quiet kind of dying. I wanted to scream, to destroy something, but all I did was stare at the water until my reflection blurred into ripples. Lydia had been my best friend before she was my sister. Inseparable since childhood, protectors of each other. She'd cried on my shoulder when her last boyfriend cheated. She'd sworn she'd never be that woman. And now she was. The questions came like waves. How long? Why her? Was it me? The mind searches for reason when the heart shatters. But some betrayals are too deliberate to explain away. I stayed by that lake until the sky began to turn orange. When I finally drove home, their cars were gone. The house smelled like betrayal. A faint trace of perfume, an unmade bed, a glass of wine left half-finished on the counter. I didn't cry that night. I sat at the table, staring at the wall clock as it ticked through the hours. Tick, 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 like counting down to something inevitable. By dawn, the tears finally came, quiet, endless, the kind that make your body ache. And beneath them, something darker stirred. Not rage. Not yet. Something colder. A calm realization that they'd stolen something from me. And I wasn't done. Days turned into weeks. Daniel tried to reach me at first. Texts, calls, apologies wrapped in confusion. It was a mistake. It meant nothing. "We can fix this." Lydia didn't call. She sent one message, "I'm sorry. I never meant for you to find out like that." Like that. As if the real tragedy was in the discovery, not the act itself. I blocked them both. Or at least that's what I told everyone. But I watched. Quietly. Their social media pages became my late-night haunt. I saw how carefully they hid it at first, separate posts, coded captions, no overlapping photos. But lies always crave sunlight. By the third month she'd posted a picture. His arm barely in frame, but his watch unmistakable. Then came the engagement photo. A simple caption, "Second chances." It was almost poetic. I sat in the dark, staring at the glowing screen, the laughter frozen in pixels. I expected the pain to come back, the shaking hands, the nausea. But there was only stillness. That was the moment I knew. The moment the idea took root. Not revenge in its crude, cinematic form. No poison. No screaming confrontation. Something cleaner. Poised. A performance so perfect they'd never see the blade until it touched skin. I deleted the photo and closed my laptop. Then I began to plan. The first step was to vanish gracefully. People assumed I'd left town to heal. In truth, I was rebuilding. Every day I went to work, smiled when required, lived like a ghost among the living. At night I made lists. Guest names. Venues. Vendors. I poured months of pain into the perfection of one day. A wedding. My wedding. To a man who didn't exist. The details had to be flawless. The invitations elegant but understated, printed on ivory paper with gold edges. My name was written clearly. Evelyn Grace Carter. And beside it, the fabricated name of a fiancé, Michael Hale. Michael didn't need to exist. He was a symbol, the life they thought I'd built beyond them, the happiness they believed they'd destroyed but failed to. Every detail was bait. I sent the invitations out one morning, hands steady, smile unshaken. To family, old friends, distant cousins, and of course 2 special envelopes. One addressed to Mr. Daniel Brooks and one to Ms. Lydia Carter. I sealed them with wax, pressed the stamp carefully, and slipped them into the postbox. Then I waited. The replies came quickly. Excitement, curiosity, polite shock that I'd moved on so fast. People were eager to celebrate my new chapter. Daniel didn't reply. Not at first. But a week later I got a text. Congratulations, Evie. I'm happy for you. Truly. He's a lucky man. I could almost hear the strain in his voice, the disbelief under the civility. Then Lydia messaged. I don't know what to say. I'm glad you found someone who treats you right. Maybe we can finally put things behind us? I stared at that message for a long time. The audacity of it. I didn't reply. Instead, I let the silence build. Tension layered over confusion, until curiosity turned into obsession. They needed to see me happy. Needed to confirm that I'd survived what they'd done. And I wanted them there to witness every moment. The venue was an old estate outside the city, the kind that smelled faintly of roses and history. I booked it under my name, choosing an intimate ceremony with 50 guests. White flowers, golden drapes, candles flickering like small suns. It was the kind of wedding Daniel and I had once planned, down to the same playlist. Every detail was deliberate. Every choice a ghost of what could have been. I designed the seating chart myself, placing them near the front. Close enough to see, far enough to wonder. As the day drew closer, I rehearsed every step, every expression. The soft smiles, the practiced calm. I learned to wear serenity like perfume. Believable, alluring, hiding the poison beneath. By the time the morning of the wedding arrived, I wasn't nervous. I was composed. Almost serene. Outside, the sky was clear, the air warm. The scent of lilies filled the air, his favorite. Guests began to arrive in murmured excitement. Faces from the past, some familiar, some not. And then just before noon I saw them. Daniel in a charcoal suit, looking thinner, older, eyes darting nervously. Lydia beside him in pale blue, her smile small but determined, clutching his arm. For a moment the world blurred. My heart stuttered, not with love but with something sharper. The sight of them together was like staring into a wound that never healed. But I smiled. Daniel. Lydia. I said, my voice steady, smooth. You made it. Lydia hesitated, as if unsure whether to hug me. I stepped forward before she could decide, wrapping her in an embrace that was almost tender. You look beautiful, she whispered. So do you, I said. I'm glad you came. Daniel's gaze searched mine, desperate to read the truth. But I gave him nothing, just a calm, radiant joy that didn't belong to him anymore. He didn't know that everything he saw, the flowers, the music, the laughter, was built on the ashes of what he'd burned. And he hadn't yet realized what this wedding truly was. As guests took their seats, a hush settled over the courtyard. The officiant stood by the altar, flipping through his notes. Music began to play, soft piano, the same song that once played when Daniel had proposed under the willow. I walked down the aisle alone. No bridesmaids, no family beside me. Just me, and the ghosts of everything I'd lost. Every eye was on me. I could feel their curiosity, their admiration. But all I saw were 2 faces in the front row, wide-eyed, confused, restless. When I reached the altar, the officiant gave me a brief, puzzled glance, a question unspoken. I gave a slight nod. It was time. The music swelled as I stood before the officiant. Guests leaned forward, murmuring softly, drawn into the intimacy of the moment. But my eyes were locked on Daniel and Lydia, their tension almost palpable. Ladies and gentlemen, the officiant began, clearing his throat. We are gathered here today to witness the union of Evelyn Grace Carter and Michael Hale. I allowed a tiny smile to brush my lips, though it didn't reach my eyes. Michael Hale. The man who didn't exist, yet whose name would become the spearhead of their humiliation. Daniel's hand twitched at his side. Lydia's lips parted, confusion flickering across her face. I waited, savoring the silence, letting it stretch like a rope around their necks. And now, if anyone here has reason why these two should not be united in marriage, the officiant continued, voice solemn, you may speak now. A polite murmur ran through the audience. Daniel and Lydia exchanged a glance, frantic, searching for some anchor. I stepped forward, calm, radiant, like the sun rising over their deceit. I do, I said softly, clearly, letting my voice carry across the courtyard. I have a reason. Gasps swept through the crowd. A few guests craned forward, curious. Daniel's hand tightened into a fist. Lydia's face paled. I know who you are, I said, eyes locking onto theirs. I know what you've done. Daniel, you've been unfaithful. With my sister, Lydia. The words hung in the air like a blade suspended by a thread. Daniel opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Evelyn. It's not what you think, isn't it? I cut him off, voice rising, resonant. Or have you conveniently forgotten how long this affair has been going on? The whispered phone calls, the secret meetings, the lies. Lydia's eyes shimmered with tears, but I didn't flinch. I never flinch. You didn't think I'd notice? I asked, pacing slowly between them, letting my shoes scuff softly against the stone tiles. The perfume, the stolen glances, the excuses. You underestimated me. You assumed I would break. And I almost did. But I didn't. Because while you were busy betraying me, I was planning something beautiful. Something unforgettable. Whispers rippled through the audience. I could see heads turning, mouths parting. Daniel's lips thinned, his composure cracking. I invited everyone here today, I continued. Not to celebrate love, but to witness the consequences of betrayal. Your betrayal. Lydia's hands trembled at her sides. Daniel took a step forward, but I held up a hand, stopping him mid-motion. This is not a wedding, I said, voice icy now, sharp as glass. There is no Michael Hale. He doesn't exist. This day, this ceremony was never about marrying. It was about you realizing finally what it feels like to stand at the altar and see someone you love, someone you betrayed, completely unshaken, completely alive, while your world collapses around you. The crowd was silent. Some looked shocked, some horrified, others fascinated. Daniel's jaw was tight, his face pale. Lydia's hands covered her mouth, stifling a sob. You see, I continued. I spent months planning this. Every detail, every guest, every flower, every note in the music, to ensure that you, the architects of my heartbreak, would be here. And now you are. Front row. Witnessing the life you tried to ruin. Thriving in spite of you. Daniel's voice finally broke through, low and trembling. Evelyn, this isn't fair. Fair. I let that word hang. Fair. I repeated, voice rising, carrying every ounce of pain I had endured. You mean the life you stole from me? The years of trust and love you shattered for your selfish desires? Fair. No, Daniel. Life isn't fair. And neither am I. I could see the panic spreading across their faces. Realization dawning that they had walked into a trap not of violence, but of precision. Then I gestured to the officiant, who handed me a small, sealed envelope. Inside this envelope, I said, holding it aloft so the audience could see, are photographs, text messages, emails, every proof of your infidelity. A record of every lie you told, every moment you tried to hide. Your actions are documented, undeniable. And they will be shared, eventually, with everyone who matters. Lydia gasped. Daniel's shoulders slumped. You thought you could hide, I said softly, almost pitying them. But the truth has a way of arriving slowly, inevitably, beautifully. Then leaning closer, I added, almost whispering, you will leave here today knowing exactly what it feels like to be powerless, humiliated, and fully exposed the way you made me feel every single day for months. And I will enjoy the silence afterward. I stepped back, letting my calm radiate outward. The officiant nodded, as though confirming the performance, and the crowd began murmuring, shocked, impressed, unsettled. Daniel and Lydia stood frozen, caught between fear, shame, and disbelief. They couldn't speak. They couldn't leave. They could only endure. I smiled at them, serene, radiant, untouched by their guilt. You are witnessing my strength, I said. Not my destruction. And in that, you will learn something you never taught me, that I am not yours to break. The ceremony continued, but the vows were empty, meaningless, a performance. Guests clapped politely at the end, some still murmuring. Photos were taken. Everyone except Daniel and Lydia smiled for the camera. Their faces were masks of horror. Afterward, the reception began, but I hardly interacted with anyone. I observed them quietly, as they slinked from conversation to conversation, unable to find a safe corner. Their stolen glances at me were frantic, guilty, terrified. I made my way to the dessert table, where I had arranged a single symbolic cake, white, flawless, with delicate gold icing spelling, "The truth always rises." Lydia reached out toward it, and I withdrew my hand, letting her hesitate. "Go ahead," I said softly. "Taste it. Remember every bite." She recoiled, realizing the gesture was more symbolic than celebratory. Daniel's hand brushed hers. Neither spoke. By sunset, guests began to leave. I thanked each one, all smiles, the calm hostess. And finally they were left alone. Daniel swallowed hard. "Evelyn, why?" I leaned forward close enough that he could feel my breath. "Because," I said, my voice soft but lethal, "I wanted you to see me whole. I wanted you to see the consequences of your choices. And most of all, I wanted you to understand that nothing you do can ever break me again." Lydia whispered, voice quivering, "We're sorry." I shook my head. No apologies. No explanations. Just the truth. And a lesson, one you'll never forget. Then with that, I turned and walked away, my dress sweeping the stone floor, golden light from the candles kissing my shoulders. I left them in the quiet of the courtyard, exposed, shamed, powerless, exactly as they deserved. Weeks later, I watched as Daniel and Lydia's lives began to unravel. Rumors spreading, friends questioning, colleagues noticing the tension. My revenge was silent, elegant, devastating. And I moved forward. Not unscathed, not untouched, but unbroken. Every step I took away from them was a testament to survival. A declaration that betrayal could never define me. The wedding invitations, the envelopes that had begun it, all remained framed on my mantle. A reminder of the day I turned heartbreak into power, betrayal into artistry. I didn't need them to understand. They never would. I only needed to know that I had won, not with rage, not with screams, but with calm precision and the relentless truth. And that was enough.